Dear learners, welcome back to your educational channel Learn and Educate, where we're studying a few basics about the Foreign Exchange Management Act. In this video, we would answer a question which is, what does foreign security mean? Foreign security here includes, in a broad manner, security in the form of share, stocks, bonds, debentures. First of all, we need to understand what are this. These are these sources of capital. In broad sense, than money. Finance is an art and science of managing the money. The money which way the business requires at that time and the source of funds. How the finances is procured and utilized. It is a way in which the individuals, organizations, persons, companies, it raise monetary resources over a period of time, taking into account the underlying risk involved, the underlying cost involved, the decisions of financing with respect to which source of capital should be leveraged so that the requirement of the business is fulfilled. The foreign security here means that a security in the form of shares. Shares means a share in the share capital of the company, a part of share. Share is the interest of a member in the company. As per Section 2, Clause 84 of the Companies Act 2013 in India, share means a share in the share capital of the company where it includes stock. Share includes stocks where the shares are converted into stock. Stock is an aggregate amount. Stock is an aggregate total of the fully paid up shares that have been legally consolidated. The shares of the company which have been fixed into a fixed amount, and it includes the value regardless of the nominal value of the shares. They have been consolidated, which means that the consolidated amount is the divisible into fractions of any amount, and it does regardless, it does not take into account the nominal value of the shares which have been consolidated. Thus the consolidation of shares into a units, it is called as stock. The stocks is transferred in any denomination which is not limited to the nominal value of shares. Moreover, but co- the contradiction is that the shares are issued, they denotes a nominal value, a face value, and they may be issued at premium at the time of IPO or FPO. Shares have an interest. Shares denotes interest of a member in the company. The company which have a mobile property, it is transferable in any form in accordance with the articles of association of the company. When the shares belongs to that individual, to that person which hold that share of the company, equity share capital. Here share are of two types: equity share capital, preference share capital. Equity share capital is that portion where the shares has a risk capital. Equity share capital denotes the risk capital as the shareholders are exposed to a greater amount of risk at the same point of time. They have an opportunity. They have an opportunity with respect to the earning of income, with respect to the value additions they may receive. The preferential capital is one which enjoys the two rights as per the Companies Act 2013. A right to receive the dividend at a predetermined rate before it is paid to equity holders. The profits which has been remaining, residual profits after making payment for interest to debenture holders, taxes, and after that amount is paid to equity holders which have an predetermined right. They have a right to receive the interest, the dividend. They have the right to receive dividend, and they can get their capital repaid on the winding of the company before it is been paid to the equity holders. The preference shareholders enjoy a preferential right in the matter of payment of dividend and repayment of capital. The different types of preferential capital are cumulative preferential capital, where the dividend is accumulated on that kind of preference shares. Non-cumulative preference shares where it carries a right for fixed rate of dividend, and in case where participating preference shares where they get right to participate in the surplus asset which is left after the repayment of capital to equity holders on the winding up, and a right to participate in the surplus profit which has been left after payment of dividend to equity holders. Non-participating preference shares where such preference shares do not give the right to their holders to participate in the surplus profit which has been remained or surplus assets. Convertible preference share means those type of preference shares which enjoys the right to convert them into the equity holders after the period as per the issue document or the prospectus. Non-convertible preference share means those shares which do not get converted into equity shares, redeemable preference shares, and non-redeemable preference shares. And equity share capital are the ordinary shares which do not have preferential rights, which are enjoyed by preference shareholders, are equity shares. Equity shares have voting right or with the differential rights as to voting and dividend. This share does not enjoy equity shares does not enjoy any preferential right to dividend and repayment of capital. For equity shares, they are having a differential right like an ordinary equity shares, but it provides a few rights which as per the shareholders. The difference is that the voting rights it can be used by reducing the degree of voting power. Therefore, for an ideal investor, long-term investor, equity shareholder is the best source of investments can be made. Equity shares are dividend is paid to equity share after the payment of dividend to preference holders. Repayment of capital is made after such an after the repayment of the preference shareholders is fulfilled. There is no fixed rate of dividend for the equity shares. There is no accumulation of previous unpaid dividend, which means that in any 2 or 3 continuous financial year, dividend is not declared and paid to equity shareholders, then they do not have the right of accumulated dividend, which are enjoyed by preference shares. These shares are not convertible. Generally, equity shares are never convertible into another form of security. Therefore, a share is not a sum of money, but it is measured as a sum of money, measured by a sum of money, which carries a right, which carries a right. It is changed. It has a ownership. It gives equal right to the vote. Equity shares get the equal right to voting. They get right to elect the directors. They have a right to receive dividends. Moreover, the holders of shares have a liability to pay the face value, to pay the full value of the shares which has been held by them. Therefore, share denotes the ownership in the assets of the company. Share denotes the ownership because company has a legal obligation towards the equity holders as they are owners. Where foreign security, coming back to the definition, foreign security means any security in the form of shares, stocks, bonds, and debentures. Share, stocks, bonds, and debenture. Debenture are those funds which are being utilized by raised by the company. They are raised by the company when, as per the prospectus which has been issued by the company, they have the subscribers of debentures have the right for interest, periodical payment of interest by the company with respect to not with respect to the profits. They would have to pay the interest to the debentures. In the same way, bonds are issued. There are various kinds of bonds which are being issued by the companies with respect to as per their needs. The bonds may be zero interest bonds. They carry interest. These bonds are sold at the face value, and at the time of maturity, the investor is paid face value and interest. The bonds are an underlying financial security which enjoys certain rights as per the issued document, as per the documents, as per the prospectus. Bonds are backed by the assets. The bonds are backed by the assets which are issued by the issuer or by the company, whereas debentures they are not actually secured, but they are secured by the assets it hold. Debentures are issued and purchased as a credit worthiness and the reputation of the company. The interest rates is generally fixed. Interest rates on the debenture is fixed. Debentures as is shows an acknowledgement of debt. Debenture shows acknowledgement of debt as per section 2 clause 30 of the Companies Act 2013. Debentures include debenture stocks, bonds, or any other instruments of the company which evidence a debt, a liability, which constitutes a charge on the assets of the company or not, but they evidence a debt. Equity share and debentures are different with respect to their proprietary interest. Debenture holders are only creditors. Debenture holders, which means the debentures do not enjoy a right of voting. Debenture are having a right entitled to interest at a fixed rate of time for a fixed period. Debentures are usually redeemable, that is, debentures are usually repaid, and therefore debentures have a maturity period. Debenture holders have a priority over other capitals, over share capital, over equity share capital, or preference share capital. They are paid after the profits of the company. Immediately they are paid the interest. Whether the company is profit making or loss, it doesn't matter, but the company has to pay the interest to the debentures to the debenture holders. Where debenture holders can initiate a legal proceedings against the company in case of defaults made by the issuing company with respect to payment of interest and repayment of capital. Debentures usually have a security, a charge. The charge may be fixed or floating. This is created. This is a charge which is created on the profit or loss of the company, which is with respect to the fixed payment of interest. There is a floating charge which is attached on the asset of the company, which can be easily identified. A floating charge that floats above ever changing assets because the assets of the issuer keeps on changing with respect to time. Therefore, the debentures or debenture holders have a floating charge on the assets of the company, where foreign security includes security in the form of shares, stocks, bonds, debentures, or any other instruments. The bonds denotes the borrowed money which is raised by the company. Bonds have a face value on its maturity. Coupon, that is, there is a rate of interest which has to be paid, and the effective rate of interest is determined with respect to issue of bonds. All these instruments means any security issued in the form of shares, stocks, bonds, debenture, or any other instrument which are denominated or expressed in foreign currency. All these instruments which are been issued expressed in foreign currency, and foreign security also includes the securities which are expressed in foreign currency, but where redemption means actual repayment of the face value of the instruments, whether it is debenture or preferential capital or bonds. When they are redeemed, they are or any form of return, rate of return such as interest with respect to debenture and bonds, and dividend which is issued in the case of preferential or equity shares. When the repayment of that funds and the rate of return and the return in the form of interest or dividend which is paid or payable in the Indian currency, where any company which raises the funds and issues security in the form of shares, stocks, bonds, debenture, and any instruments which are expressed in the foreign currency, and this includes the securities, the above mentioned securities which are expressed in foreign currency, but where the amount of redemption, where the repayment of the amount and the return in the form of interest or dividend which are being to be repaid in the Indian currency, they are also included in the foreign security. Therefore, foreign security, as per the Foreign Exchange Management Act, has been answered in this question. And what does foreign securities mean? Are the bonds, debentures, stocks, shares, any other instrument which are expressed in foreign currency, and the securities which are expressed in foreign currency, but the redemption and return are paid are payable in Indian currency. They would also be considered under the term foreign security.